Rightio. So today I'm going to talk about why electric vehicles are good for their people, their purses and the planet, and look at some of the early results from Flip the Fleet. So Flip the Fleet was started by Henrik, who's from University of Otago down in Dunedin, and Dima, who's a software developer up in Auckland. And Flip the Fleet has the goal of accelerating the uptake of electric vehicles in New Zealand by providing scientific data, EV owners helping each other and informing the debate about misconceptions about electric vehicles and what their benefits are. So if we look at how many electric vehicles there are in New Zealand at the moment, there are about 5,500 now, and this has been approximately doubling every year. So the increase has been growing substantially. And this is dominated by generally Nissan Leafs, and this is reflected by the data that we have in Flip the Fleet, with both Gen 2 and Gen 1 Nissan Leafs, and a few other types of electric vehicles. Electric vehicles also predominantly in the towns, with in Flip the Fleet, quite a few contributors from Auckland, Otago, Wellington, and Christchurch, and a few other regions as well. So I got an electric vehicle because I was doing a lot of travel taking my kids to sports events. So around 2,000 kilometres a month, just on small journeys, etc. And now the kids have become extremely passionate about electric vehicles. Whenever we go anywhere, they try and spot the electric vehicle. They also, at school now, do speeches on electric vehicles and why people should get them, and do cool projects and why everyone should get rid of their internal combustion vehicle. They also spot chargers around the place. So I've found getting an electric vehicle is very, very good to get your kids involved in environmental impacts and other factors of electric vehicle ownership. And there's a picture of my kids and the electric vehicle. So one benefit of electric vehicles is emissions avoided. So here's a plot of an electric vehicle showing the kilograms of CO2 avoided each month from an electric vehicle. You can see it varies depending on the amount of travel done each month, and that yellow line there shows the median emissions avoided for an electric vehicle. You can then extend it to show what the 25% and 50% intervals are, and then we can extend it again to show the 5% to 95%. So many people are actually getting up to about 400 to 500 kilograms of CO2 avoided in their electric vehicle each month, and this depends on how much they're driving and what type of car they're driving as well. So looking at the total New Zealand electric vehicle fleet, in October they avoided about 1 million kgs of CO2. So electric vehicles are having a huge effect on the CO2 emissions in New Zealand. And one aspect of electric vehicles as well is plug-in hybrid electric vehicles. So some people think they won't have a great impact on reducing our CO2 emissions, but they actually, most of their trips are quite short. So it's within their range of their batteries. So they are actually reducing the CO2 emissions quite a bit as well. So looking at an internal combustion engine compared to an electric vehicle, an internal combustion engine has about 2,000 moving parts, and if we compare that to an electric vehicle, it only has 20 moving parts in the engine. Now this is much, much more reliable, and think of your freezer just moving away there in the corner for over 20 years not needing any repairs. This is more like an electric vehicle. So there are considerable cost savings in the actual maintenance of an electric vehicle. There are also considerable savings in the running costs of an electric vehicle with electricity much, much cheaper than fuel. So looking at the actual cost savings per month, you can see that you're averaging for around 1,000 kilometres up to about 1,500 kilometres per month. Cost savings are about $150 per month. And in the overall sample of people in Flip the Fleet, it's sort of 50% range between about $100 and $200 per month in savings compared to an equivalent internal combustion engine vehicle. And looking at the entire database, people are saving generally on average about $1,800, but this ranges for a 50% interval from about $1,400 to $2,500. And so with some people even saving up to about $5,000. One issue that people have about electric vehicles is battery capacity loss. So a recent survey in Flip the Fleet asked people, declining battery state of health significantly impacts on the practicality and lifetime value proposition of owning an electric vehicle or plug-in hybrid. So about 250 people responded to that, and about 50% strongly agreed, about 20% neither agreed or disagreed, and about 30% disagreed or strongly agreed. So it's potentially an issue for electric vehicles. So what do we see about that in the actual database? Right, so here's battery state of health measurements from 777 cars. No, sorry, 777 times from 147 cars. So over time, we can see that the battery state of health deteriorates as a function of age. Age is a primary factor, so the amount of distance that a car has travelled doesn't seem to really greatly affect the state of health of a car. Neither does the number of fast charges or the number of slow charges that a car has had. But if you look at age 4 years, for example, you can see that some cars are still at 100% of battery state of health, while other cars are nearly down to about 75%. So this affects the amount of range that car has compared to its original range. There's a lot of variability going on, and we need to understand what is going on here. And a talk later on will discuss aspects of this further. So how convenient do people find an electric vehicle compared to a nice car? So a survey has gone out asking how they find charging at home versus filling up at a petrol station. And 92% of people determine that they prefer looking at 92% of people preferred charging up at home compared to using a petrol station to fill up, and they found it because it was fast, reliable, reduced transport cost, was clean and free of fumes and hazardous substances, and easily integrated into daily routines. They also likely just had one automatic bill at the end of the month. Another question was, how long should someone wait until you buy an electric car? And people generally thought that people should, 76 thought that people should buy an electric vehicle immediately. 16% reckon that it should be best to wait another year, and 8% advise people to wait 2 to 5 years until they should buy an electric vehicle. So generally most people think that it's a good time to actually go and get an electric vehicle. And people who have electric vehicles, 64% of them have one combustion vehicle along with their EV, and 13% have 2 combustion vehicles along with the electric vehicle, and 1.3% have 3 combustion vehicles along with the electric vehicle. Only 1 in 5 just have an electric vehicle. So generally, an electric vehicle is great if you still have another internal combustion engine for those longer trips. So take-home messages. EVs will play an important part in reducing New Zealand's CO2 emissions. They are one of the best ways of reducing your CO2 footprint compared to going for solar panels or battery storage. Savings from reduced fuel costs and maintenance are substantial, and they'll be talked about further in a later talk. Battery capacity loss, it isn't a big issue, but we do need to understand it better. And EVs are already good for many, and potentially you should switch now, depending on your personal circumstances. If you make many short trips, an EV can give you many cost savings over a traditional internal combustion engine. And just one further thing is Flip the Fleet won a Sustainable Transport Award last week for the effort that it's making in getting people to switch to EVs and informing the benefits of electric vehicles. So Dima and Henrik were extremely proud of what they've achieved here. So thank you. We'd like to thank the nearly 500 electric vehicle owners that have contributed their data, and Henrik 3 times for the excellent work he's put into this and some funding that has been done to help progress this work. Thank you.
Any questions for David? Yeah. Of the people who owns an EV and a combustion vehicle, how many have combustion vehicles and those that aren't?
How long was that?
Of the people who own EVs
Yes.
and combustion vehicles, how many have a combustion vehicle that is a hybrid combustion?
Not many.
So they're skipping that?
Yes. Yeah.
What major concern of EV is mileage? People do not get stuck.
Yes.
So do you think if we have a micro generator, so with a petrol or diesel or whatever, so can stand by, can carry if you want to go outside the city?
Yes.
Is that meaningful?
Potentially, but you do get the range extender vehicles which provide the extra capacity with the engine. So they have the battery, and then if the range starts going low, they'll charge up the battery with that range extender motor.
Is that a generator or a battery pack?
A generator,
Generator.
yes.
Do you have a view on how much better the range is going to get over the next few years? Are you
So the range is starting to increase substantially. The new Nissan Leaf is now coming out with a 40 kilowatt and then later on a 60 kilowatt battery. And the new e-Golf has a much larger capacity battery as well. So the newer Model Leafs and other electric cars are coming out with much better range.
up to 300?
Yes, 300 plus kilometres.
Yeah, we talk about cost saving. Compare cost save with the battery you may need to buy after 8 years or 10 years.
Yeah, that's currently uncertain. So we're trying to work out what those costs will be.
Because I drive a hybrid, but it does save the petrol, but I'm not sure over time I can use it. It's safe because I may need to change the
Yes.
battery.
Yeah,
The risk can be very expensive.
yes.